Hi, friends. Welcome to CORELIGHT'S Spiritual Weather Report. It's July 21st, 2024. This is Brad, and I'm really happy to be here with you, as always. I'm calling in today from London again. I've been here the past few months because there is a foundation here supporting a long-time vision that I've had to turn Leslie's and my book, The Marriage of Spirit, into a video series. And the project is going very well. And I plan to share it with you next year, so please stay tuned for that. Last month, we talked about the extreme intensity of the energy, and that is continuing to play out this month. And I would imagine you're probably feeling it, like many people I know. So we're going to be talking about that on the call today. Also, today is a very special full moon. My astrologer friend Stephanie Austin said, I'm going to read to you what she wrote here. She says it's the second of two consecutive full moons in Capricorn Cancer, which is far more significant and rare than two full moons in a calendar month. So if you happen to be on the call live today, we'll all be benefiting from this power moment. And if you're listening in the future, I hope you can feel the spiritual power that's coming through the recording. As you know, on these calls, there's no such thing as time and space. We do operate on another level, and we are together real time, whether you're listening now or in the future. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the Lion's Gate is coming up on August 8th, which is 8/8, and it's a very powerful window. I'm not going to have time to talk about what the Lion's Gate actually is today, unfortunately, because we have so much else to talk about. But if it interests you, I talked about it in depth on the call last July, 2023, and the July before that, 2022. And those recordings are on CORELIGHT.org's free resources page in the Spiritual Weather Report archive. So if that interests you, go for it. You can listen to that. There are timestamps written on the website now, so you don't have to listen to the whole recording. You can just go right to that place where it says Lion's Gate. And it's really amazing. If you don't know about it, I encourage you to find out about it, because it's a day that many shamans, including my friend Linda Tucker, the founder of the White Lion Protection Trust in South Africa, many shamans say that it's the most powerful day of the year, and that it sets off a whole chain of events that go through the end of the year. And so it's a day to take note of and to use for ceremony and clearing and so forth. It's a date to take advantage of. Okay, before we begin our session today, I would like to welcome everybody who's new to CORELIGHT, and also welcome to all of our old friends. For those of you who are new, every month I tune in on what's happening in the collective consciousness, and I'm always shown a few key themes to talk about on these calls. And for today, there are 4 themes. The themes are navigating, breakdown, and breakthrough. And number 2, transcending, cynicism, and naivete. And number 3, clearing fear. And number 4, receiving new levels of peace, love, and joy. So for anybody who's new to the calls, I start by offering a guided meditation, and then I speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we have time for questions and answers at the end. And we always close the session with a brief guided meditation or a prayer or whatever we have time for. And if you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. And also, before we get started today, I would like to just share a few little updates with you. I'm super excited to announce that in the next few weeks, we're going to be launching the audiobook of Leslie's and my book, Returning to Oneness, The 8 Keys of Ascension. It's been a long time coming. And I think one of the most exciting things about it is that we've created a whole new product that goes with the audiobook. It comes with it. And it's an extra guided meditation set to music that walks you through all 8 keys together so that you can sit. It's long. It's like almost an hour-long guided meditation. And you can sit and open each key in the body, all of the 8 keys, and open the flow of Kundalini through the body from root to crown. It's very powerful. I'm super happy with how it came out. So you can stay tuned for that. Just to note that for a while you can only get the audiobook at CORELIGHT.org. We're not ready to put it on Amazon or Audible yet, but we'll keep you posted on that whenever we do. The other thing that will be available is a new revised version of the ebook. We're not printing a new paperback yet, even though there's this new version, just because we still have stock of the current edition and they're very similar. It's not a radical changes to the book. So please stay tuned for all that. We will announce it by email and maybe even within a week or two. So I'm very excited about that. The other thing I'm also very excited about, Leslie's birthday is coming up, August 12th. We always do something to celebrate her birthday. And this year, we are going to offer 25% off all of Leslie's sacred art and free shipping as well. We've offered 25% off before, but we've never offered free shipping. And it's for all of August. It's for the whole month, for her birthday month. And that's a significant savings because the art actually costs a lot to ship. So if you've always wanted a piece of Leslie's art, this would be the time to get it. And in case you don't know, these are what are called giclées, which are museum quality reproductions. When you put a giclée next to the original painting, it's very difficult to tell the difference unless you get up and look sideways and see which one has the raised brushstrokes. They're that close to exact reproductions. So you can see all of Leslie's art at CORELIGHT.org on the Sacred Art Gallery tab. Also, one more thing, we'll be offering a new collage of Leslie's called African Dreamtime, which is a celebration of elephants. And it's a beautiful collage that she made a few years ago. It's just we haven't reproduced it yet as a giclée. So part of this is the significance of this is that Leslie's birthday is August 12th, as I said, and August 12th also happens to be World Elephant Day. So that's always been something we've paid attention to. Leslie and I have always had a deep love of elephants. So this will be also honoring the elephants with the launch of the new piece of art. Also, just so you know, the sales go to support our nonprofit. So any money you spend on the Sacred Art Gallery goes to support CORELIGHT. And we also give a percentage of all the proceeds to seedsoflight.org, which is our humanitarian arm that supports the marginalized communities in South Africa. Lastly on that is that you'll also notice if you go to the website, any of our products, books, greeting cards, art, the card decks, CDs, and so forth, everything physical on the website will be free shipping in the month of August. So we're just wanting to celebrate Leslie's birthday and offer a gift to the community and give you a little incentive to go and see what's available on our stores on CORELIGHT.org. So please do take advantage of that, and you'll be supporting CORELIGHT, and you'll be supporting Seeds of Light as well. Lastly, just two last quick little things before we get started. As a reminder, in May, we launched For the Love of Animals, which is the online course that I co-teach with our colleague, Anna Breitenbach, who is a world-renowned interspecies communicator. You can find out about that course at CORELIGHT.org. It's right near the top of the homepage. I'm super proud of how it came out. It's a lovely, lovely course. And very last, coming up in September, October, we're planning to launch one of Leslie's best courses that she ever did, which is called The 7 Portals of Spiritual Awakening. So I invite you to please stay tuned for that one as well. All right, my friends, without further ado, let us have our guided meditation. So I invite you now to get comfortable, either sit comfortably or lie down and close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths and just relax. Deeply, deeply let go and relax. Breathing in all the light and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out any tension that you might be holding on to in the body. Breathing in the present moment. Breathing out any worries about the past or the future. Just being right here, right now. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just giving yourself the gift of the present moment. Breathing in love. Breathing out shadow. Now, I invite you to feel a warm energy pouring over the top of your head, like honey. Relaxing all of the muscles that it touches. We're going to do a muscular relaxation of the body from head to toes. So just feel this warm honey pouring over your scalp, relaxing all the muscles of your head, pouring over your forehead, over your eyebrows, your eye sockets, and feeling all the many, many tiny little muscles around the eyes where we hold a lot of tension, just letting go, completely relaxing. Your eyelids, your eyeballs, just relaxing so much that your eyeballs fall back into their sockets. Feel this warm honey pouring over your temples, your ears, the back of your head, nose, cheeks, mouth, jaw. Just feeling your whole head completely relaxing and letting go. Relaxing the back of the tongue. And feeling how when you do that, a whole region of the body relaxes. Back of the head, the neck, shoulders. Just feel this gentle flow of the warm honey melting all the tension in the muscles, pouring down your arms all the way down to your fingertips. Just also feeling the tension in your wrists and hands melting away. Those are places where we hold a lot of tension because of all the computer work we do and work on our devices. So just feel the melting of the tension in the wrists and the hands, the forearms. Feel the warm honey pouring down your torso, front and back, pouring over your diaphragm, over your mid-back, over your stomach, lower back, and all the organs. Just feeling your entire torso deeply, deeply relaxing and letting go. Let's take a long, slow, deep breath, breathing light in through the top of the head, all the way down to the pelvis, and then releasing it, releasing the tension with an exhale. Let's do a couple of those breaths, a couple more. Breathing light in through the top of the head, stretching the lungs, stretching the diaphragm very gently, and releasing and letting go. One more. Breathing light into the top of the head, all the way down through the diaphragm, down to the pelvis, stretching the lungs and the diaphragm, and then releasing with an exhale. Feeling the warm honey pouring down over your pelvis, relaxing the whole of the pelvic region, your genitals, the root, psoas muscles, buttocks, pouring down your legs, front and back, relaxing the upper legs, lower legs, ankles, feet, and toes. So now just feel your whole body from head to toes being swept clean and free of any tension. And let's take another few long, slow, deep breaths, breathing light into the top of the head, all the way down to the feet, down to the soles of the feet. Feeling the light coursing through your whole body. Just filling yourself up with light and beautiful divine energy. And then exhaling any tension in the body out with the exhale. Let's do a few of those breaths. Light in through the top of the head all the way down to the soles of the feet. And then exhaling any tension anywhere being held in the body. And now I invite you to put your attention on the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine, the perineum. And feel how when you put your attention on the root chakra, it very gently and naturally opens. And it's okay if you're new to this maybe, or you can't feel it for some reason, that's all right. Doesn't matter if you can feel it or not, you can just visualize. Set the intention that one day you'd like to feel it, and you will. And then I invite you to drop your grounding cord from the root down to the center of the earth, connecting your grounding cord with the core of the earth. Feeling that deep, anchoring earth energy. Feel how gravity very gently pulls you towards the earth, and that you're supported by Mother Earth from beneath in the form of the floor and the chair. Gentle gravity helps us to just relax into the support of Mother Earth. You can let go, knowing that you're safe and held. Just like a little baby in the arms of its mother. Just feel yourself relaxing and letting go completely in the arms of Mother Earth, like a little baby. Feeling very nurtured, safe, held. Oh. The relaxation is so important. We forget that deep breathing, deep relaxation, these are the foundation for the enlightening of our consciousness. Some people say that enlightenment is just a very, very deep relaxation. So sometimes we forget the importance of just stopping from the busyness of our world, from the chaos and the noise and the distractions of our world, just stopping, giving yourself just a few moments to relax and let go. So important. So I invite you right now to just completely let go. Release, relax. Feel this beautiful earth energy grounding you. And now I invite you to draw the earth energy up into your body through the soles of your feet, up your legs, all the way up the torso, up your core, all the way up to the top of the head. And I invite you to put your attention there at the top of your head, which is the crown chakra. And feel how, when you put your attention there, the crown chakra naturally opens, just like a 1,000-petaled lotus on the top of your head, opening petal by petal. And again, it's okay if you can't feel this. It doesn't really matter. You can just visualize it. But it does happen naturally when you put your attention gently at the top of your head. The crown opens up and out like a funnel above your head. This beautiful flower unfurling its petals. So I invite you to just allow that, just feel it. And feel the energy from the celestial realms. The energy of your higher self, your soul energy, pouring down into the top of your head, filling you up. Beautiful golden white light, like a gentle rain, gentle mist pouring down from above, filling you up. Feel yourself absorbing this beautiful energy. Just feel it saturating your every cell. Trillions of little cells, like little sponges, absorbing this beautiful golden white light of your soul energy. So as you continue to absorb that beautiful golden white light of the divine from above, and continue to fill up with this very grounding Mother Earth energy from beneath, filling your body from both directions, I'm going to say a little prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God. We call on all the angels, all the highest guides and teachers, and the beings who surround us in the highest love and support. We ask that you please wrap us up in a beautiful cocoon of golden white light and love and healing energy, filling us up full of light, full of love, full of joy. And we ask that you please guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. Please support us as we walk out into the world, into our soul's highest purpose. And for this we offer deep, deep gratitude. We give thanks for this field of love that we get to sit in together here for a couple of hours, sharing the joy, the love, the light that we all contribute and that is provided by the divine. This collaboration in love and light. And we acknowledge there is no time and space at this level, so if anybody's listening to this in the future, you are with us in real time. We're all sharing this together at the same time. And while we're in this beautiful, deep, loving space, let's send a blessing and a prayer out to all beings on planet Earth who are suffering. Anyone who suffers for any reason, from war, from illness, poverty, lack of any kind, loss, grief, challenges of all kinds. And we send this out as well to the rest of the natural world. Blessings to all life forms, all of our brothers and sisters, the waters, the mountains, the trees, animals, plants, minerals. And we give thanks. We give thanks knowing that this is so. We pray especially for peace and an end to war on our planet. Please make us instruments of peace. Where there is war, may we sow peace. And please protect and inspire all those who are working for universal peace. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alalaho. And that is the Tibetan Amen, which means, isn't it wonderful? Alalaho. I love that word. So now I invite you to please bring your awareness back into the room and into your body. And wiggle your fingers and toes. Stretch. And when you feel ready, slowly open your eyes. Oh, thank you, everybody. I love those meditations with you because it gives me an opportunity when I'm not focused on what I'm saying. I'm just with you in the energy, and I get to feel the field with you more deeply. So it's nice to feel you, nice to be with you at that level in the field of love. I wanted to start today with a couple of quotes. Last month I started with several quotes. They were all about truth. And afterwards, a friend shared her favorite truth quote with me, and I liked it so much that I wanted to share it with you now. The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. And that is Augustine of Hippo, St. Augustine. So thank you, Ruth, for that. Ruth on truth. The second quote, I love this quote. I've shared it before. If you've been listening to these calls for any length of time, you might have heard it, but it's worth the repeat. This is by the character Diana Prince in the film Wonder Woman. She says, I used to want to save the world, to end war and bring peace to mankind. But then I glimpsed the darkness that lives within their light and learned that inside every one of them there will always be both. A choice each must make for themselves, something no hero will ever defeat. And now I know that only love can truly save this world. So I stay, I fight, and I give for the world I know can be. This is my mission now, forever. Why does that make me cry, to quote Wonder Woman? I cry so easily these days. I never used to be able to cry. And now it's like, a sports team wins. I start crying. Anyway, Wonder Woman. God bless her. So the first topic for today is navigating breakdown and breakthrough. And I have to say, the energies that we are experiencing right now are very intense and very weird, aren't they? I wonder if you're feeling what I'm feeling. I've talked with a number of people who concur with me. We're feeling I don't know, it's weirdness and intensity, and it's really difficult to put it into words, difficult to describe what it's about. But I'm going to try today, because it's always helpful to try. Last month, I talked about it, and I called it a feeling of a disturbance in the force. And I described how it wasn't just something negative happening, but there was also something very positive about it too. And now, since then, we're starting to see the physical manifestation of that playing out in the world. I described the disturbance in the force as pairs of opposites, and I'm going to read them again to you now, just in case you didn't hear last month's report, and also it's a good reminder, even if you did, because these energies are still playing out this month. We're not through with this, so this still carries through. So here's the list: disheartened and inspired, disconsolate and uplifted, hopeless and hopeful, purposeless and purposeful, meaningless and meaningful, breakdown and breakthrough. Both sides of the polarities are happening, and we're starting to see the manifestation of them in the physical world. A lot of people have been asking me to comment about the assassination attempt of Donald Trump that happened about a week ago. So I thought I should share some thoughts here because it does relate to our theme today. But before I do, I want to preface what I'm going to say with being very clear that I am not taking any sides here. I never do. I am not choosing one party over another or one candidate over another. I have to say this because the polarization between left and right is so extreme, and it's such a contentious issue these days, as I know you know, that I realize that whenever this subject comes up, there's all kinds of upsets and misunderstandings. Assumptions are made, fears arise, and it can all just deepen the polarization. So please do not read anything into what I'm saying about this, okay? I will, either foolishly or courageously, I will venture into this minefield of this discussion if we can agree on that you won't read anything into this. Okay, thank you. So, no matter what one's opinion of Donald Trump is, what's happening with this event is part of the playing out of this energetic shift that I talked about last month. I think it's really important to recognize that there's a big energetic shift around this event. And both negative and positive have come out of it. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, on the one hand, it feels like part of the breakdown of a civilized society. Whenever there's an assassination attempt of a figurehead, especially a president or a prime minister, there's hatred and there's violence that is unleashed in the world. And so one could argue that would be coming maybe from both sides to some degree, but both sides meaning like left and right. But it's not just that. So many people are choosing love as well. Many people are realizing that this is our opportunity to practice the spiritual teachings. We're being given the opportunity to practice loving and transcending fear and doing what we can to help heal the divide, let's say, in the world. So my feeling is that this event has helped many more people wake up and realize that something's really wrong, that there's something wrong with this picture. And so when somebody wakes up to that, they often want to help heal the divide. So the event has had a catalyzing aspect to it, and it's highlighted this increasing polarization, and it's made the need for connection and tolerance and respect. These are qualities of the heart. It's made these things more visible. And it's about choosing love, right? It's about choosing connection and love over hatred and separation and disconnection. So I think one of the most important things that we can all be doing right now is asking ourselves, how much have we been able to choose love in a situation like this? It's a very, very good practice for our times. So we can ask ourselves, for example, can I love the shooter and his family? Can I love Donald Trump? Can I love everybody on the left? Can I love everybody on the right? Can I love, fill in the blank, whatever's going on for you? Can you love that? And if not, if we can't, why not? What stands in the way of that? And sometimes we find there's anger in the way, or fear in the way, or whatever. And usually it's associated with fear of some kind. I mean, even if it looks like anger, there's always some kind of fear underneath anger. So if we're not able to absolutely love everybody, then it's also important not to judge ourselves for being in that place. And if that's the case, we just need to witness that part of us that's unable to keep the heart open in that way, and to practice loving ourselves, being right where we are. It's a very human thing. There's no judgment on this. If we're not able to keep our hearts open, that's natural. The heart opens and closes like a valve in the third dimension. It opens with positive stimuli and closes with negative. And so this is the journey. The journey's about learning to keep the heart open. And this is our practice. This is why we're here. And so wherever we're at on that journey of learning to keep the heart open and loving our way through life, this is an excellent opportunity to practice self-inquiry around all of this. It's a great time to discover those parts of us that might still be in fear instead of love. And I almost forgot, I want to say, let's also take a moment to please remember to hold in our hearts the people who were killed and people who were injured. Those people and their families need love and they need prayers. So please, I invite you to take a moment to pray for them. I would imagine you already have, but as a group, let's just send our love out to those people. God bless them. So as I was saying, I think the main spiritual practice here is to hold this whole event in love as much as we're able to, and doing our best to have tolerance and respect and compassion for everybody involved. And I think the other important thing to talk about today around this is about truth. What is the truth? If you remember, the main theme of last month's Spiritual Weather Report was about truth and love. I think it was truth and love are the most powerful forces in the universe. And so that theme is playing out this month. It's manifesting physically. So we've talked about love, but let's also talk a little bit about the truth. Several people asked me about all the speculation around what really happened with this assassination attempt. And if you've tracked any of the reports at all, there are all kinds of, bizarre aspects to the story. I mean, there are just many ways that things don't add up. It just doesn't seem like we're being told the truth. The facts don't make sense. With what we're told the facts are. So I don't want to get into the details of it because there are plenty of sources online for learning more about that if anybody's interested. And I don't think it would be good use of our time. But what I do think is a good use of our time is to talk about how do we look at this from a spiritual perspective? how do we hold this? And what can we do to evolve and grow spiritually from this? So I think it's important, first of all, not to assume anything and not to take a side. So, for example, we wouldn't want to necessarily believe what we're being told at face value, right? Because, like I said, it doesn't add up. And also, corollary, we also don't want to necessarily believe something like the deep state is trying to take out Trump. Because any of this might be true. Any of that could be true, but it also may not be true. We don't know. And so I think it's a really good idea to simply just ask questions, because, like I said, there are a lot of things that don't add up. And in the end, we may or may not get answers, but at least it's important to question what we're being told. And like most of the quote-unquote news stories, I say quote-unquote, it's the so-called news these days. If you're you can't really, I don't really want to get into this topic today, but it's, you've heard me talk about it before if you've listened. It's just, there's so much manipulation going on that if you're reaching a conclusion because of the news, the so-called news, and if you think you've figured something out, you might be caught up in the manipulation. So I just find it much more empowering to do the three practices that we talk a lot about on these calls. And those spiritual practices are, number one, witnessing. Number two, using discernment. And number three, practicing neither believing nor disbelieving. And because I've talked about those three practices quite a bit, I really don't want to repeat that now. We've got a lot of other things we need to talk about. But if you're new to these practices, or if you just need a reminder, the information is in the previous spiritual weather reports, and I'll just list them here in case you might be new or you want the reminder. It was last month, June of 2024, that we talked about practicing discernment, so you can listen to that replay if you want to hear more about practicing discernment. And like I said, we have maybe I didn't say this yet, but we have an archive page. If you go to CORELIGHT.org to the free resources page, you'll find the archive page there of the spiritual weather reports. And we've got the timestamps are listed. So you don't have to listen to the whole thing. You can just go right to the topic you want. So practicing discernment is there, June of 2024. And then in February of this year, 2024, one of the themes was practicing neither believing nor disbelieving. And I really think that is such a critical practice for our times. In fact, I think I'm just going to highlight that, just kind of recap it a little bit. So practicing neither believing nor disbelieving is where you consciously make a choice to receive information, but you just allow it to be there without judging it, without reacting to it. You practice what we could call spiritual detachment. It's a form of witnessing, just being neither attracted nor repulsed to it. The famous psychologist Carl Jung always said it's a practice of holding the tension between two sides of a polarity. In case that's helpful. So then you can listen to anything. You can listen to anybody and not feel threatened by whatever they're saying. So I feel like nowadays that's a super important practice, neither believing nor disbelieving. And the last one was witnessing as a practice. So I'm not going to elaborate on that here, but if you do want more on witnessing, I invite you. There was one spiritual weather report. It was November of 2022 when I talked a lot about witnessing and spiritual detachment. And there's also a whole chapter on witnessing in our book, The Marriage of Spirit, which is available at CORELIGHT.org. So I invite you to check those out if you need more on that. Okay, so back to the topic. With this event, And with so many other things happening in our world these days, how do I say this? There's just this great mystery around it. And it's so difficult to know the truth. It's a mystery wrapped up in enigma and wrapped up in a puzzle, wrapped up in a riddle, and on, like it's like a set of Russian dolls. So I find these three practices are really super helpful in situations like these. And we may be encountering more situations like these. So that's why I think this is a theme this month to bring this up. There are plenty of other news stories that reflect changes in the world related to the energetic shifts that we're experiencing, but I think I'd rather not get into the weeds with all of that. I think you get the idea from this one example that I've just shared, the assassination attempt. These dramas that are unfolding in the world are all part of the playing out of these intense and weird energies and these major shifts that have been happening on the inner planes. I think most people can feel that the intensity of the energy has been building for a very long time. I know, Leslie and I have been talking about this for decades. And some people have been talking about it since, the 1970s or whenever. So now there's this feeling that we're actually reaching a crescendo. And I wonder if you feel that. I know a lot of people who do. So I just want to say that because, to name it, because if you're feeling that, you should know you're not alone. It's a crescendo. There's more to come, but we're starting to experience this crescendo, and we're beginning to see the outpicturing of the energetic shifts. The physical manifestation of the inner changes is starting to happen. And like I said, there's going to be more. There's more in the coming months, especially as we lead up to the U.S. presidential election in November. I hesitate to speculate what that's going to look like, but all I can say is fasten your photon belts, folks, because it's going to be a bumpy ride, I think. But there's nothing to be afraid of. We're more than prepared for whatever's coming. We have all the spiritual tools we need to be able to cope with whatever's coming and even to thrive. We talk about that a lot on these calls, that this is the most amazing time to be alive. We can thrive in these times because we have the spiritual tools and we know how to do this. It's a very exciting time if we know how to work with the energy. We don't have to go down with it. We can go up with it, ascend in consciousness with it. And it reminds me about the astrology for this year. You might remember in January, my friend Stephanie Austin joined me on the podcast, and we talked about the main theme for this year is exponential change. You remember that? We talked about the massive changes in store for the world, and especially for the U.S. this year. And it's not just this year. I mean, it is this year, but it's more than that. It feels like, to me, and I know many other people I talk to, it feels like the 2020s, like the next 5 or so years. There's going to be like a few significant events, let's say, that will help usher in paradigm changes that the world needs to go through. And so as we go through, and nobody really knows what that's going to be. It could be anything. But as we go through those changes, it'll be the breakdown of the old ways. And there will also be the breakthrough manifesting right along with that, both the breakdown and the breakthrough. So, whatever crises arise, whatever revelations happen, there's just going to be huge opportunities for transformation. And it's already a little disorienting, but that's normal, that is normal to feel disoriented when we go through big changes. And with each step of the way, our job is to just keep choosing love. And that's it. This is what we came here for. This is what we've trained for. This is what our incarnation is about. It's the great awakening. I mean, I remember at one point being told inwardly, I'm at the end of a very, very, very long journey. And I know it's true for many people, so I share it with you. Because to me that was helpful. It reminded me that, I know that we've, if you're listening to this call, this is probably true for you. I speak for myself, but, we've had many, many, many lifetimes to learn many lessons, to have many experiences. And this is it, this is like the big shift. We're moving into the new paradigm of the heart. So it's like all those lessons we learned about power and abuse of power, we're completing it. It's a completion cycle, and we're completing and moving into love, into the power of love, from the love of power to the power of love. That's how I like to look at it. So it's incredibly exciting, incredibly inspiring, despite what some of the surface appearance looks like. So we're going to close on this subject, but before we do, I also just think it's important to acknowledge that the weirdness and intensity of the energy shifts, and the weirdness and intensity of the events in the world have sort of become normalized. And I wonder if you've noticed that. I mean, there's so many bizarre things happening in the world. And it just seems surreal to me, but it's kind of become normalized. It's like, I don't know about you, but I find myself using that word surreal a lot these days. Like throughout the day, almost every day I'm going like, oh my goodness, that's surreal. And I think it's important to name it, to acknowledge it, because it is surreal. It's massive change. And so, let's name it, that it's become normalized, and yet let's witness it. Let's practice our witnessing so that we don't just get inured to it, so that we don't just take it for granted, like, oh yeah, the new normal. No, this is important that we witness this and realize that this is a part of this massive shift, the Great Awakening. All right, I think that's enough on that, and that kind of leads into the next subject. So let's go there. The next subject is Transcending, Cynicism, and Naivete. I was feeling this, and then it actually got concretized, because the other day I heard somebody say something like, they were talking about what I was just describing about the surreal quality of our world, and somebody was saying something like, well, congratulations, we've made it through the chaos so far, and so now we can be a bunch of cynical bastards. And, I mean, it was meant to be funny, and it is funny in a way, but it made me realize cynicism is an issue. It's an issue that's up for a lot of people, and so I thought it would be really good to work with it. It's very easy to feel cynical these days, and so if you're feeling cynical, you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not, saying, shame on us for feeling cynical, but the truth is that it's polarized. It's a polarized state, and it's really not helpful for our spiritual growth. It's also not helpful for creating the better world that we want to create. It's not helpful for staying in the heart. So if you've been around CORELIGHT for any length of time, we always work with polarities. And if you're new to CORELIGHT, we do that because working with polarities helps us to move beyond the limitations of the system of duality, we call it, or the system of separation. So we always start by naming the opposite side of whatever triggered us. So in this case, I heard this guy say cynical bastard. So what's the opposite for you of cynical bastard? And I'm going to cue the game show music here. I'm not going to speak for a moment while you think about it. What's the opposite of cynical bastard? And I'll tell you what I came up with. I came up with naive Pollyanna. There's no right and wrong to this. That's what I came up with, and I share it with you in case it's helpful. I'm sure whatever you came up with may be right for you. So just for today, I thought a productive use of our time might be to do a square on cynical versus naive, or cynicism versus naivete. And if you're new to squares, it's one of the practices that Leslie and I teach. It's in our book, The Marriage of Spirit. As I said, that book's available at CORELIGHT.org if you haven't got it. If you've been around for a while, you know squares are a super, super powerful way to shift consciousness, to shift energy. And the best way to do them is, the best way to learn about them is to just do one. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to dive in and do a square on cynical and naive. So what we do first is break the polarity out into 4 corners, because each side of the polarity has an opposite. So there's 4 corners, not just 2. And it has to do with desires and fears. So the first corner would be the desire to be cynical. The desire to be cynical. If you're not multitasking and you're sitting around and you want to get your journal out, this is a good time to do that. We can do the square together. I'm going to whip through it pretty quickly, just for the sake of time. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I made a list of a few things that I put in each corner, and I'll read them out to you. But you're welcome to spend more time on this and add your own things later for home practice if you want to do that. So in the corner, the desire to be cynical. Here I wrote about 6 or 7 things in each one, just as examples. So here it is. Desire. I'm going to read it. Desire to be cynical, because it's hard not to be cynical nowadays. Oh my goodness. Number 2. What better response should we have when there's so much corruption in the world? When you're being manipulated and you know it, cynicism feels good. Cynicism can be humorous, and humor is essential in challenging times. Yeah, laughter is important. Good coping mechanism for many reasons. Makes me feel less vulnerable and more empowered. Helps me overcome feeling duped. And like I said, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. You can add more to that if you like for home practice. It's always good to spend quite a bit of time on these corners. The more you flesh it out, the more you really pour out your cup. Empty your cup into onto the page. The bigger a breakthrough you usually have in the end. But like I said, for the sake of time, we're going to move through this quickly today. The second corner would be the fear of being cynical. So desire and fear are opposites, right? So we have the desire to be cynical and we have the fear of being cynical. It's like the desire is pulling cynicism towards us. The fear is pushing cynicism away from us. So the fear of being cynical, I have a few things to read to you. First one is pessimistic. It assumes the worst. Also under fear of being cynical, it's expressing anger and frustration in a passive-aggressive way. Cynical humor is sarcasm, which is often hurtful. Cynicism is a low vibration state. It's a very limiting attitude. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of negative perception. Ultimately, cynicism is unhelpful, even though it may feel good. in the moment. Okay, moving on for sake of time. The third corner is the desire to be naive. And here's what I wrote. It makes me happier than being cynical. If I'm just positive enough, everything will be okay. Ignorance is bliss. Keeping my head in the sand is easier than dealing with the truth. If I'm innocent and pure, then maybe people won't hurt me, and maybe God will protect me. Naivete promotes curiosity and learning. Naivete is an aspect of beginner's mind, which is a very powerful, positive spiritual state. Okay, for sake of time, we're going to move on to the last corner, the fear of being naive. And again, if you're new to squares, you've got desire and fear of both sides of the polarity. The desire is pulling it towards you, and the fear is pushing it away. So that's how we create the opposites. It's how we name the opposites. Okay, fear of being naive, being a Pollyanna. Number 2, suppressing, ignoring, and denying the negative side don't work, and in fact are detrimental. It's childish. It's unsophisticated. It's a lack of experience and wisdom. Toxic positivity. Neglecting pragmatism. Okay, so that's a quick, very, very quick square. And again, if you want a bigger breakthrough, I invite you to do more on your own. But for now, I think it's pretty good. You know, it's good enough. You may have written some things down on your own as well. And the last step of squares is basically the point of doing the square is we've made the unconscious aspect conscious. And once you do that, once you make the unconscious conscious, you've done everything that you can do. And then the last step is to make an offering of it in prayer. And we give it back to the universe, we give it back to Great Spirit, to our guides, and we ask for a balancing and healing and a clearing. And so we'll do that at the end of the call today. That'll be the last thing we do. It might give you a little time to add some more things to your corners if you want to do that before we make our offering. I also thought before we move on, we should do a triangle on cynical and naive as well. And real quickly, the triangles are another practice that Leslie and I teach in the Marriage of Spirit book. If you're new, they're very easy to learn, very powerful, very simple, but very deceptively simple because they're so powerful. So what you do with a triangle is you you feel into the polarity. In our case, it's cynical and naive. And what I like to do is I visualize those the two sides down in the lower chakras of my body. And then I visualize a top point, the apex of the triangle would be up in my heart. And so you've got a triangle superimposed over your body with cynical and naive on the baseline. And you try to find a word that fits at the apex of the triangle that ascends and balances the polarity. So we call that word the ascended balance, and it usually is a state of heart-centeredness in some way, or some kind of higher vibration state, a higher consciousness state. So that's a triangle. So I would invite you right now, I won't tell you, I've got my own words. I came up with 5 actually. There's usually never just one. You can often find several words that you like, or phrases that you want to put up there in the apex, the ascended balance. So I'll be quiet for a moment while you consider it and see what you come up with, and then I'll share my ascended balance words for cynical and naive. Okay. If you didn't come up with any, that's totally fine. I'm going to give you mine. And if yours don't match mine, that's also totally fine. There's no rule to this. It's what works for you. So for my triangle, I came up with truth at the top. Cynical and naive to me are balanced and ascended in truth. Another word is discernment. That also ascended and balanced. Can be a real feeling exercise where you feel into your body and you feel what helps shift your energy into the heart and into balance. So another word that I put there is detachment. I actually came up with 5, so there's 2 more. One is humility. And the last one is purity. In our book, The Marriage of Spirit, there is a whole list, like a whole page of words. It's like a cheat sheet. And I just love that list because it's a whole bunch of words that are heart-centered words. And we always encourage people to print that list out, to copy it, put it on your refrigerator, put it as a screensaver, whatever, put it on the inside cover of your journal, whatever you like to do. But it's always good to refer to those ascended balanced states because they help us. They help us to find the heart quickly and easily. It's a really nice cheat sheet. So I invite you to do that. So I hope you felt a shift with that. Now there's one last step to triangles as well, which is just like the squares. The last step is that there's an offering in prayer. And like with the squares, we're going to do that at the end of the call today. We'll offer up the triangle and the square. So for now, I think we can complete on that. I do hope you experienced a shift. That was the point. I think we did a nice little piece of work together here. So now let's move on to the next topic for today, and that is clearing fear. I know whenever we hear the word breakdown, we've been talking about breakdown and breakthrough, but whenever we hear the word breakdown, fear usually arises. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And the truth is that there are plenty of things we could feel afraid of right now. I know you know that. I'm not going to make the list, but you must know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's anything and everything from like World War III to, nukes to civil war to a financial crash, you name it. Alien invasion. I mean, the fear hype in the media is really off the charts, and we know that fear sells, and we are much more easily controlled when we're afraid. So I think that's part of the reason that clearing fear came up as a theme this month. There are a few things that I find really helpful to remember about fear, and I want to share those with you just in case they're helpful. My guess is if you've been around for a while, you know these. So this will just be a reminder for you, but let's go ahead and do this. So the first thing is the practice of witnessing. We've talked about that a little bit already, but as we talk about it so often on these podcasts. But the witness is that part of us that is the objective observer. And it's that part of us that is the one who watches us doing the roles of the personality, the one who is aware of our thoughts and emotions and who knows that we are not those thoughts and we're not those emotions. We are pure awareness, pure consciousness. And the thoughts and the emotions are just passing through us. The personality is not who we are. It's passing through. So the witness is that part of us that remembers that fear is just an emotion passing through us. We know we're not the fear. We know it's not even real. And so one thing I find really helpful to remember when I'm feeling fear about anything is that fear is just a frequency. Like I said, it's not real. It's just a frequency. It's just a vibration. And it's nothing more than that. It's an emotion. And it has a certain frequency and a certain vibration. And we can witness that. That means we feel it, we name it, we let it pass through us. We're aware it's not who we are. We're aware that this too shall pass, and we just let it go. Another thing that I find super helpful to remember, which I know many of you already know, but it's a good reminder, is that it's natural to feel fear whenever we're going through a phase of spiritual growth. And that's because we're expanding our awareness beyond our current egoic boundaries. That is the spiritual path, right? And the walls of the ego are made of fear. So naturally, we feel the fear vibration when we pass through those walls of ego. It's just what happens when we move beyond, the little limited egoic patterning into our larger self. And because the ego, it's built to help us survive, it does everything it can for us to keep things the same. The ego is synonymous with control, and it's designed to hold on to the status quo and to avoid change at all costs because it knows how to survive that. So whenever we start to grow, whenever we start to change, the ego is going to resist that in order to protect us and to help us survive. It's like it's doing its job, it's doing us a favor, and it puts out these warning messages. Don't go beyond this point. It's dangerous. You're going to die. Stay the same at all costs, whatever you do. It's easy to laugh at when we talk about it like this, but it seems very real in the moment. So these are the walls of fear at the edge of the ego that we pass through whenever we evolve and grow and expand. And now the next thing I want to say, this is a really important point that you may not have been thinking about, but I think it's really important for today. So I just want to, if you're zoning out a little bit, I want to just bring your attention back so that you hear this part because it feels important. And that is that what's true for an individual is also true for a collective, because a collective is just a group of individuals. So here's what I think is so interesting about these times that we're living in right now. Because we're in this, this phase of a huge collective egoic transformation. Right? We're going through this huge phase of spiritual growth as a collective. We're going to be passing through the walls of fear of the collective. So it's perfectly natural for there to be collective fears arising as we grow and expand, because we're passing through those walls of the collective ego. And I think that's really helpful to remember, just as we watch the weirdness of the energy and the weird playing out of things happening in the world, the disorientation that's going on, the strange, surreal quality of our world, I think it's important to remember this. So just be aware that as we go through these changes, you might really start feeling more people being afraid. And the media tends to stoke that. And so I think it's just important to have our eyes open to it, just be aware of it, because fear, the vibration of fear is also contagious. Have you ever been in a situation where one person gets really afraid and you start to, everybody in the car or everybody in the room starts to feel it, and kind of it can get out of control, people can start to panic, but it can come from one person. So I think I'm raising the red flag here. I'm just saying, let's all be witnessing this. Let's be aware of it. So as we go through these collective changes, let's remember that if fear starts arising for our friends and our neighbors and our family, just witness that and go inward and say, is this really necessary? Is this my fear? Am I feeling somebody else's fear? Is this the collective fear? And remember what I just was talking about, that, fear is just a vibration. Fear's just a frequency. That's all it is. And you can let that pass through if you practice your witnessing and your clearing work that you know how to do. So I also think it's important to remember that whenever we go through these expansion phases, which, I mean, we certainly are as a collective right now, in addition to fear arising, a couple of other things happen as well. And one is that other unconscious shadow aspects rise up to the surface and they make themselves visible. So that's just natural. It's like when we go, it's like when we do this clearing work, it's like an architectural dig. You're digging down in the basement there, you're digging down and you don't know what you're going to find. So when we go through these phases of growth, spiritual growth, be aware that other unconscious shadow may rise up and make itself visible for you. So it's our opportunity, right? We get to witness more of the unconscious, more of the hidden stuff. And it's our great opportunity to let more things go. So it's sort of like a friend of mine calls it the ascension accelerator. We're in an ascension accelerator because it's just exponential growth opportunities right now. And so the other thing that happens, which now, drum roll, this is, I think, one of the most important things to be aware of. The other thing that happens is that new levels of joy and love and peace and these higher vibratory states arise as well. And this is the fun part. Like, this is the dessert that we get for doing, for eating our beans. For doing the shadow work. We also get this joy. And so this is the last topic for today. It's about receiving new levels of peace and love and joy. And I think, this explains why so many people I know are experiencing these new levels of deep inner peace and beautiful experiences of unconditional love and, more joy than ever before. And this is despite all the challenges in the world, all the fear going around. I just wonder how many of you are experiencing this. I know I am. I know plenty of people who are, but I'd love to hear from you. If you're having this experience, let me know. Just know that you're not alone. And if you're not having it, that's also okay. We all are where we need to be. I just bring it up because it's something to acknowledge and be aware of. Last month, I talked about joy quite a bit because one of the themes was, what if your job were to live in joy? And I got quite a bit of feedback from people saying that they felt that was true for them. And I was just so happy to hear that. So thank you if you wrote to me and told me that. And honestly, I'm not surprised by it. I know that it's true for quite a few people. So joy is a theme that is still coming through this month. And in fact, I'm sure it's going to be with us for quite some time. And before I go any further, like I said, I just want to be clear about this. I'm not saying that everybody should be experiencing joy. It's totally okay if you're not feeling much joy right now or not feeling joy at all. You might be going through a crisis or grieving or some kind of loss or some other issues that aren't conducive to feeling joy right now. And so if that's happening to you, it's exactly what you need to be experiencing right now. So I'm not suggesting that you try to suppress or deny what you're going through. But when you're ready, there's a moment. There's a moment when it's time, and you can feel that moment. You let go of whatever that was, and you allow the joy to come in. And like I said, joy, it's one of the benefits of doing this clearing work. There's a metaphysical truth that says we can only go as high as we're willing to go low. And so as we move through the fears, as we grieve, as we, do the architectural dig, we're digging out the basement. It's also perfectly natural that, we discover the new heights, the new higher stories of our building that we never even knew were there. It's like we discover there's this whole new floor above us, and we get to take the elevator up there. And so those are the new levels of peace and love and joy that are coming in right now, that we're being invited to receive. And it's a great gift. And like I talked about last month, joy is the highest vibration that we can hold. It's the highest manifestation of the spiritual path. And so the more that we can live in joy, the greater the gift we're giving to the earth. And joy is, I would say, the antidote to the fear and the negativity and the cynicism as well. I mean, isn't that interesting? We did a square on cynicism, and I didn't put joy at the top of the triangle. That should be there. It's just so needed right now. And before we close out on this for the day, it just reminds me of one more thing to share. And that is, it reminds me of the 8th key in the book that Leslie and I wrote, Returning to Oneness, 8 Keys of Ascension. And the 8th key is, don't worry, be happy. And that is such a simple aphorism. In fact, it's deceptively simple because it's such a profound spiritual truth. I know most people think of it as just a reggae song, but it's not that. It was actually said, Mayor Baba, a very profound spiritual teacher and enlightened being, said that. He actually said it to his Western students because they worried so much. He said, don't worry, be happy. And the fact is that worry is fear. Worry is the energy of fear, and it just never resolves any issues, so it's a total waste of energy. And the antidote to fear or worry is joy, like I said. So I invite you to use that key, don't worry, be happy, as a mantra for the next month, and see how it goes. It's a really good practice. Every day when you wake up, I invite you to use that mantra and use it throughout the day whenever you remember. Repeat it inwardly. Or sing it. Listen to the song. Play the song every day. And I'm telling you, it's easier said than done. But it's always fun to try. It's fun to try not worrying and being happy. So if you do try it, please let me know how it goes for you. I'll be very curious to hear in a month's time how your practice went. Okay, so let's wrap up. Let me just say, to wrap up for today, I want to say, despite the intensity and the weirdness of the current energies, and despite the fears and the challenges that we're going through, I invite you to welcome in these new levels of peace and love and joy that are ours to claim right now. This is our birthright. It's what we incarnated for. And it's the most important thing we can do. Holding that high vibration that joy brings. It's the antidote to all the challenges that are happening in the world. I think that's all for today. Okay, so questions and answers. And I want to thank you so much for the questions and the heartfelt sharing that you send me. I really appreciate hearing from you. A number of people have been writing in, and I thank you for that, for taking the time. It helps me enormously to hear how you are. In case you're new, the way this works is you can email your questions in advance to courses@corelight.org. It's not possible for me to answer all the questions, but I do read them all, and I do get to as many of them as I can each month. And if your question doesn't get answered by me, the answer always comes from somewhere. I think you probably know that. Dreams, insights in meditation from a book or another teacher, or somehow somebody tells you something that's your answer. All right. The first question today, let me get them out here, comes from Ursula. Ursula says, on the last spiritual weather report, you said limitation is relative. How can I know which limitations I should accept and which I can overcome? So first of all, thank you for your excellent question, Ursula. I have to say, I don't remember saying that, but I trust that you must have said, that I must have said something like that, and that's fine. But anyway, your question reminds me of that prayer called the Serenity Prayer. It's the one that goes something like, God, give me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what can be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. I love that prayer. It's such a beautiful, powerful prayer. And so your question is, your question's about the how part, right? How do we know the difference? I think the prayer is right, that we need wisdom to be able to tell the difference. And I think that wisdom can come from experience. It can also come from practicing discernment, which we talk a lot about on these calls. So let's talk about the things that can't be changed. I think there's some sort of obvious things that can't be changed, right? And that would be like, let's just say, for example, if we're over, I don't know, like 40 years old or so, and we decide we want to be an Olympic skier, but we've never skied before. It's probably not going to happen, or at least it would be really amazing, miraculous if it did happen. But basically, when we're up against some kind of physical limitation like that, it becomes often something we can't change. We can change a lot of physical things, so I'm not saying that that's not the case. It's just in some extreme circumstances like that, we have to maybe modify our goals. I think there's also the issue that we cannot change other people's behavior, right? We don't have control over what other people think and say and do. But we do have control over how we respond to them. We can change our own patterning so that we can respond differently to people. If we don't like how they trigger us and how we react to them, we can control our own response. So we can't necessarily make them stop being themselves, but we can do things like we can draw our own boundaries, or we can clear our own patterns, so that we have a choice of how we want to respond to other people and events that are apparently outside of our control. And so I think this is really the beauty of doing this inner clearing work that we talk about on these calls all the time, what we call the work of self-inquiry. Because when we do that work of self-inquiry, not only are we empowered in being able to change how we respond to triggers from the outside world, but the most amazing part is that when we change our patterns, we notice the outside starts giving us different feedback. In other words, people start treating us differently. Events start to go more favorably, let's say. We experience fewer dramas in our life. We start to attract the people and the things that resonate more with us, that make us happy. I would say basically we start to manifest our best life when we do that work of self-inquiry. And the principle behind that is that everything in our world is simply a mirror of our own unconscious self. So in other words, the world is constantly reflecting back to us that which is within us. So if we do the work of self-inquiry, which is about making the unconscious conscious and shining a light on the shadow and clearing those shadow aspects of the personality, then the outer world is going to mirror back to us a more shadow-free reflection of us. So that's when we start to manifest our best life, as I said. That's when we start to have more fun in the world. And it's when we get to have a greater impact on the world, too. And that's, I think, one of the most empowering things, especially for our times, because we all want to help change the world, right? So it's like CORELIGHT'S tagline says, change the world by changing yourself. And that's how we do it, by doing the inner clearing work. So even though we can't control what people think and what they say and do, what's amazing is that when we do the inner clearing work, we notice that people start changing their behavior towards us. And that's because they're just mirroring back to us what's in our own unconscious. So if we clear our own unconscious, then they mirror back to us that new level of clarity inside of us. So I know this can all sound kind of, heady and like hard to wrap your mind around. So let me give you a really practical example. Let's just say, for example, you're somebody who has a pattern of suppressing anger. And I'm not saying that that's you, Ursula. I don't know your patterning. I'm actually using my own example here. I had a pattern from my childhood of suppressing anger from family imprinting. So because I suppressed anger, what did the world reflect back to me? I often attracted very angry people into my life, and people would get angry at me. And then I'd be left thinking like, WTF? What? I'm just this pure, innocent person, and people are getting angry at me. Poor me. And it does leave one questioning, right? You wonder, like, what is going on here? But then in my late 20s, when I met Leslie and I learned about the marriage of spirit, and I learned about this self-inquiry work that we teach, that I now teach, I discovered how to witness the anger that I was suppressing, and I discovered how to process it and clear it. And within a very short amount of time, I stopped attracting angry people into my life. And that's because I cleared my own anger. And I'm not going to go into the details of what that looks like. This is just a quick little example, but that's how it works. We change the inner, and then the outer changes. And most people think it works the other way around. People spend a ton of time trying to change the quality of their outer life. They try to change the outer world, but it doesn't always work. I mean, sometimes it does, but mostly it doesn't, because unless we've changed the inner, we can't really change the outer much. You can change the window dressing. I mean, you can move apartments and you can get a different job, but we keep repeating the same patterns. We keep drawing the same situations and people to us. So our outer reality changes only when we've changed the inner reality. And so I think I've segued into the part of your question, Ursula, about how do we know what we can change? And so my response to that is, really, you can change almost anything that you want to, even your outer world. I mean, it's incredible, right? If you think about it. I mean, you may not be able to change other people, but you can change their behavior towards you. So when you do the inner clearing work, you find that they might be the exact same person and behave the exact same way to other people, but they've changed their attitudes and their behaviors towards you. So, okay, let me give you more of the example. So, like in my case, some of the people in my life who were angry just like went away. Others, if they were generally angry people, they might have stayed in my life, but they didn't get angry with me anymore. That was miraculous. In fact, I'm thinking of one person in particular, a family member, who used to get really angry, blow his stack, and eventually he changed toward me so much that we developed this very loving relationship, and we became quite close friends. in the end. And I noticed that he still had anger issues, but they never erupted around me, and they never really affected me. So like I said, it is a miracle. It's truly miraculous. It seems miraculous. It's actually not. I mean, it's the reality of metaphysical truths, of the principles of our reality. That's how it works. But it can seem miraculous. So the world really is this reflection of our own unconscious self. And so I guess, Ursula, I'm saying to you that there are very few limitations that you have to accept. Most limitations you have the power to change within you. It happens by doing that inner clearing work. And Leslie and I teach our form of self-inquiry, which is in our books, CORELIGHT'S books and courses and audios and all that. But you don't have to use our methods. There are many, many methods out there nowadays. So what I always suggest to people is just try different methods and find something that works for you. Whatever works best for you, and you practice those. Just the important thing is that you need to do something. We all should be doing some kind of self-inquiry work these days. It's how we're going to support the earth. It's how we're going to help manifest the changes for the earth. So do some form of self-inquiry work, whatever works for you. That's the kind of the bottom line. And if you want to try ours, I do suggest starting with the Marriage of Spirit book and the Spiritual Warrior Training course, which is on our website at corelight.org. And the book you can get anywhere. The book's on Amazon and other places. So I hope that's helpful, and thank you so much for the great question, Ursula. I really appreciated it. I wish you all the best with that journey. The next question is from Maria. She says, you mentioned in your last podcast that sometimes we may be feeling things coming from the collective, and that by clearing these within ourselves, we help clear it from the collective too. I know Leslie also discussed this in one of her talks. Actually, she discussed it in quite a few places, but yeah. So the question Maria asks here is, I do sometimes feel helpless and powerless when I witness the turmoil going on in the world. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about this clearing process, and also about what things can we do on a personal level to help out. The thing is, on a mental level, I want to believe that this is happening. But how can I know this in an experiential way? So thank you for these great questions, Maria. I think, to be clear, I think there are two questions there. The first one is, what can we do personally to help with the turmoil in the collective? And the second one is, how can we really know that it's working? So let's start with the first question. What can we do personally to help with the turmoil in the collective? And I think we just spoke about that. The answer I just gave spoke to that a bit. Whenever you do that inner clearing work, like I was just describing, and like we did on the call today, doing a square and a triangle, and there's also the polarity practice too. Those are all in the Marriage of Spirit book. Whenever you do that work on yourself, you're affecting change in the outer world. But if you specifically want to focus on some aspect of the turmoil in the world, then you can use those methods. You can use the practices, the polarities, triangles, and squares on whatever that is. So, like, for example, I'm not sure what world situation that you especially want to help with, but let's say maybe because people asked me today to speak about the attempted assassination, maybe we just use that, use the U.S. presidential election as our example. So if you want to help improve that whole process of the U.S. presidential election, what you might want to do, you could start, there are many things you can do, but you might want to start with doing a square. For example, you could do a square on hating Donald Trump versus loving Donald Trump. So the square would be the desire to hate Trump, the fear of hating Trump, the desire to love Trump, the fear of loving Trump. And no matter what anybody's opinion of Donald Trump, you can still do this square. And it might be worth pointing out here that over the course of the last 8 years or more, there's hardly been a day where we have not been invited into hating or loving him. You know, it depends on which news source you tune into. One side wants you to love him and the other hate him. And that's just been our reality for way too long. But anyway, I digress. So you'll want to remember that whenever you do a square, usually at least one of the corners is going to be unconscious. So in this example, if you're a Trump lover, then you might have trouble filling in the corner on the desire to hate Trump. And the vice versa is also true. If you've indulged in hating Trump, you might have trouble filling in the corner on the desire to love Trump. And if you get stuck in that way and you can't think of anything to put in a corner, that means it's unconscious for you. So I bring this up because there's a trick. There's a trick for this situation. So like for that example, if you can't think of anything to put in the corner, let's say the desire to love Trump, then you would put yourself in the shoes of someone who loves Trump. And you would write down what they would put in that corner. And it's a really great trick. Even though it might feel like cheating, the principle is that we all have all four corners of the square inside us because everything is us at some level. And so at a deeper level of consciousness. And so the purpose of the square is to make the unconscious aspects conscious. So in that example, the Trump lover would be an unconscious part of you being reflected back to you. If that makes sense. I hope you can track that. If you find this difficult, if you find it hard to swallow, the metaphysical principle is that there's really nothing outside us. It's all us, as I've been talking about. At some level, all of it's us. Donald Trump is us. The opposite side is us. Even people who seem very different from us. So, ultimately nobody's doing anything to anybody. This is all an inside job. So by our doing a square, we're clearing our own unconscious self and we're discovering and accepting that everything in the world is actually part of us. And so that's the ultimate truth behind the square. And if you're not there, if you don't feel ready to accept that, that's okay. You can still do the square. And you can just pray and ask to be shown the truth of the situation. And you set the intention that you'd like to know the truth. And I can tell you, whether you believe it or not, the squares do work. So I would invite you to suspend disbelief and just try the squares. And I can promise you that by doing the squares and any kind of processing, you'll be helping to ameliorate the polarization in the collective consciousness. And you can choose any aspect of the turmoil you want. I just gave you one example. All right, just for the sake of time, we're almost out of time, so I'd like to move on to the second part of your question here, which is, how can we really know this is working? So that's a great question. And, the truth is there's no way to prove, you can't really prove this. But I can tell you there is some science about it. I can give you a few things that I know to be true that have helped me understand it better to see how this principle works, that this clearing work really does have an effect. There's a book, there are three books, or at least three principles. Two of them are books, but there are three principles I want to tell you about. One book is called Power versus Force by David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins. And he is an enlightened, I think he passed. I think he was an enlightened Western medical doctor. And he used kinesiology to measure the power of a thought form. He discovered that our thoughts become exponentially more powerful as we evolve in consciousness. So not linear, but exponential. In other words, you evolve a little bit and the power of your thoughts goes up exponentially. So he generated a scale from 0 to 1,000. 1,000 being like a fully enlightened avatar. And down lower on the scale would be, people living in lower states of consciousness, like anger, fear, negativity, and so forth, lower vibration states. And what he said was one person vibrating at 1,000, if you do the math, if there was one person on planet Earth vibrating at 1,000, that person would balance out the rest of the whole of the planet. 8 billion people, or 7 billion when he wrote the book, I guess. Their consciousness would be completely counterbalanced by this one person's thoughts. So I found that fascinating. I mean, I know the truth of that just through my own experience with watching Leslie, being Leslie's partner for 30 years, watching the power of her thoughts as an enlightened being. And as I've developed, I've watched the power of my thoughts increase, and other friends who also do the work. The field of energy that we put out supports people. It's light. It can be measured in terms of light and energy. And it's like an electromagnetic field that has an effect on people. And you can feel, if you're sensitive, you can feel that when you're with somebody, when you're with an enlightened teacher. If you've ever had that experience, you can feel their energy and how it uplifts you. So it's not just a theory, there's a real practical source to this. And I think the point of this story is that this shift we're talking about, it's not a democracy. We don't need 51% of the people to wake up, to become enlightened, or whatever ideas we have about that. We don't need to convince 51% of the people to believe something. We just need a small group of people vibrating at higher rates. And that's enough to create a tipping point in consciousness where we counterbalance everybody else. And that's happening. And some people say it's already happened. That we've got the tipping point. Because there's so many people that have been doing so much clearing work on themselves for so long. And it's not just the clearing work, it's also just meditating, and being a kind and loving person. We all raise our vibration when we practice these things. Holding joy. That raises our vibration. So it's all these things. But I find, the accelerated path is doing the work of self-inquiry. We go through much more changes faster, much more growth, quicker, by doing the self-inquiry, inner clearing work. There's another book I want to tell you about, and it's called The 100th Monkey by Ken Keyes. You might have heard of it. It's a fairly famous book. It was written a long time ago, I think in the 60s or 70s. And we don't have time to go into it in depth, but basically it's a book about tipping points. And he tells a story of how monkeys on a group of islands near Japan were being studied by scientists. And there were monkeys on one island who, it started with one of them. She started washing her they ate sweet potatoes. They would dig them up and eat them. And she started washing her sweet potato in the stream to wash the dirt off, and then she would eat it. And the monkeys in her group, what is a group of monkeys? Not a pride, it's a troop. Anyway, they learned to do the same. They copied her behavior. They learned to do the same. And when there was a tipping point reached on that island, other scientists on other islands observed that the monkeys on those other islands started washing their sweet potatoes in the water before they ate them. And so that's an illustration of how this works, how consciousness works by osmosis. Our thoughts and feelings are shared. And when there's a critical mass, when we reach a tipping point, we don't have to go show somebody how to wash the potato. It just happens naturally. It's like everybody starts doing the behavior. So I found that principle very, very helpful. There are other scientists who've also talked about this and other similar things, like Rupert Sheldrake is one, for example. He developed this theory of morphic resonance, which is similar. And there's the Maharishi effect as well, which was a small group of, they tested this in various cities. When a small group of people would meditate in a large city, they noticed that it would lower the crime rate. They studied this scientifically. And they actually, I may be getting this slightly wrong, but I think they discovered that it was the square root of 1% of the population was the tipping point. If the square root of 1% of the population meditated, they noticed the crime rate go down. And again, I may have gotten that slightly wrong, but it's something like that. So I share all this with you because I hold this inside me. Like, this is something I can, it anchors me. You know, I know the truth of this. I've observed it physically for myself in many ways, and I know that it's true. So it helps me to have faith, and I hope it helps you to have faith. You know, the work we do is working. The tipping point is happening. Like I said, some say it's already happened, and it's just a matter of time before we start to see the physical changes. You know, the sweet potatoes being washed all over the world. So anyway, I hope that's helpful, Maria, and I thank you for your question. It was a good one. Gosh, we only got 5 minutes, and there were quite a few questions this time. Oh dear. I'm going to save them. I don't want to go over. It's a long time. So I'll, if your question didn't get answered, I'm going to put it in the queue for next time. Okay? I apologize to you if I didn't get to your question. And once again, thank you for your questions and sharing. Please do write to me. I love it when you write to me. I read everything, and you can write to courses@corelights.org. All right, so we're at the end of our time for today, and let's end, as we always do, with a meditation, a quick little guided meditation and a prayer. And we'll do our offering that I promised, offering up of our processes that we did. So I invite you now to please sit or lie down and just relax. Close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in the light and breathing out any shadow that might have gotten stirred up by our conversation today. Breathing in love. Breathing out fear. Breathing in joy. Breathing out any tension in the body. We call on Great Spirit. We call on Divine Mother, Father God, Self that we all are. All of our guides and teachers, the highest angels and beings who surround us in love and light. We invite you into this sacred space, our sacred circle, and we ask that you please acknowledge and observe our offering we're about to make and support us with your grace, grace of Spirit. We give back to the universe all of the imbalances that we discovered in our square on cynicism and naivete, the desires and fears for both. We release them. We release all the imbalances, all the conscious and unconscious aspects. We let them go. And we invite in all of the ascended balance states that we named. We invite in truth, discernment, detachment, humility, purity. And we're adding joy as well. And we haven't done the square necessarily, but we named it, so let's offer up the square that we named to love and hate Donald Trump. We give that up as well. We still have to fill in the corners, but we're offering it up in advance. We offer up the fears, all the fears. We give them back, and we choose love. We pray for peace. We pray for an end to war on the planet. We pray to be made instruments of peace. And where there's war, may we sow peace. We pray for protection and courage for all those working for universal peace, for all the whistleblowers, for all the people in government and positions of power. Please bless and protect and inspire everybody working for universal peace. And bless all of us on this call live or listening in the future. Bless each of us that we may go out into the world, into our soul's highest purpose, sharing our love, sharing our light in the highest way, living our best life, clearing our patterns, living in the ascended balance states, living in love, being able to choose love, living in a witness state where we know that we are pure awareness, pure love, pure consciousness. We are the soul, having a human experience temporarily in these beautiful bodies that we get to wear for a few years on loan to us from Mother Earth. And we give thanks for this time on this beautiful planet at this extraordinary time of such great change. We're so grateful to be here and to help make a difference, to help birth this new paradigm of the heart within us and in the world, creating sustainable systems that cleans up the pollution, where we live in harmony with nature, the whole of the natural world. We're all supported by the earth, and we support the earth. And we know that this is so. We know that this has already happened. It's already happening. This is our destiny. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Allahu. And when you feel ready, I invite you to slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body. Slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. When you feel ready, slowly open your eyes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today, live or in the future. Thank you for being part of this field of love. I send you so much love. I'm grateful for you. May you be blessed. And good luck with your practice of the next month. The Don't Worry, Be Happy practice. I look forward to hearing how that went for you. And may you be able to hold high vibration of joy and love and peace. Thank you. Much love and bye for now.